hit the world in such a huge way. And so our goal has been to talk to people who live this. This is what they live. This is what they do. This is what they study. This is what they've been going through. And so joining us right now is one of those very experts, joining us from Baja California, Dr. Rolling. Of course, you've been seeing, of course, him on social media. You've been seeing him talk about this with his videos. And so, again, Lane Rolling is the Director of Clinical Education and Research, Tropical Pathology, and Infectious Disease Association. So that means, Doc, you got credentials. First and foremost, I want to start there. It has to drive you crazy to watch these TikTok, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook doctors, folks who never studied, never practiced, but because they read a medical journal or because they saw something else and they're just repeating stuff ad nauseum as if they're actual experts.
Absolutely, and Roland, thank you for having me on your program. But you're absolutely right. This has been a hell of an exercise over the last 2 years trying to educate people about real infectious diseases. I mean, I've been doing this for 30 years, real life type of stuff, and you're absolutely correct. The reason why we're in this situation, you got people that jumped into a lane they're not trained in. I've never seen any of these guys in the jungles of the Amazon doing Ebola, dengue, malaria, putting babies in body bags, seeing some of the worst diseases in the world that will eat your face away, looking at live viruses under laboratories, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And you're right. They missed the boat. They got almost 1 million people cured here in the United States, and the virus is out of control. It's going to be out of control for a long time until we reset the clock back with people that actually do this stuff every day. I'm an infectious disease guy. I'm a virologist. I'm a chemical and biological warfare expert. I'm not a mechanic. I stay in my lane.
And so when you say it's going to be with us unless we do a reset, what does that mean?
Well, a reset is that we should have had that big mama conversation 2 years ago, like I've tried to do on all the different platforms I've been on, from MSNBC to Congressional Black Caucus, et cetera. Urban League is trying to educate people about the virus. You have to understand, folks, this is an RNA virus, coronavirus, largest immunogenic virus on the planet, capable of changing in a heartbeat, and is transmitted by 3 ways: respiratory, secretions, fecal contamination. It came from an animal. This is how you protect yourself. We didn't do that. It became a political narrative. People got into a lane, and they got a lot of people killed. So we have to set the clock back, educate people about the virus, transmission, how do you protect yourself. Dr. Rowland, you're an infectious disease specialist. How do you function in a world where you're dealing with some of the most dangerous pathogens on the planet and you don't get infected? Or if you do get infected, you survive. That is a big reset. And the problem that we've had because of the misinformation and disinformation, that is why Black America and people of minorities around the world are in a bad situation.
So this, and you're absolutely right about the whole political point. And I've said this here, that I think the biggest problem that we face in the United States is that we literally had an idiot who was in the White House. But let me explain that. Because he was so hell-bent on nothing impacting the economy. He was praising China while other people were like, yo, man, they're hiding stuff from us. And so we were getting these nutty news conferences. No, don't worry. We got 13 cases. It's that one, we got that one Chinese guy. We're good. We're going to have, everything's going to be fine. Then it was, oh, no. Don't let those people off that cruise ship in Florida because that's going to cause our count to go up. Or, hey, the reason we're not testing a lot of people, because we test a lot of people, we're going to have more cases. And so I think what it did was, it gave people who already, I mean, look, you got 10 to 15% of people who are already nuts. Okay, but that thing just then began to take off. And then what I think also what you saw is you just saw this constant, no, I don't want to say, don't give them the true information. The whole battle with Fauci and Birx, no, you can't talk, the chemical stuff. And so what's hard is when the people who you want to trust in a national emergency are not actually trying to really deal with it because, oh, it might cost me the election. And so when you say the reset, the problem now is it's people like, oh, now you can't trust the government, can't trust Fauci, can't trust Biden. So the sources that we normally would want to trust, bruh, I got black people like, nah, bruh, you can't trust them doctors. And I go, we got black doctors. Well, they bought off by the pharmaceutical. I'm like, well, who the hell you listen to then? I'm like, if your ass gets sick, you gonna listen to that black doctor?
Well, I agree with you on that, but the point is that there's a guy named Dr. Lane Rowland that's been doing this real time for 30 years. I just happen to be in the jungles. And the reality is, you're right. It became a political narrative. Fauci made critical mistakes. This is a respiratory disease. You wear a damn mask. Bree, whatever her name was, she was not out in rural Arkansas or Louisiana talking to Big Mama in a trailer house about how to decrease transmission. You're right. That narrative is gone. The virus is out of control. The vaccine was supposed to be one solution. It's not going to work. Different mutations. The reality, we have to set the clock back and get back to basic understanding of infectious disease control, biosafety security protocol. What is the function of testing? Explain to people what testing can do. Explain to people what quarantine means. Explain to people how long transmission is, how long you're infected. Understanding the role of viruses in this new world and how, if we continue this pace we're going, we're going to have thousands of more mutations coming down the road. Don't make no mistake about it. Omicron is just the beginning.
All right, now we had an expert from North Carolina A&T on who made that clear back in April 2020. We were trying to warn people as well. And so, like, here's a perfect example. Okay, so Phyllis Brown on YouTube. Bill Gates been pushing the vaccine. This virus isn't going away. It's population control.
No, not at all. You have to realize that the reality is that you cannot vaccinate yourself out of this, Roland, because this virus has an animal model. This virus has found coronavirus in almost every animal, from bats, dogs, cats, bears, tigers, etc.
Okay, hold on, Doc. Stop right there. So then you got the people who are going, nah, this wasn't no animal thing. The Chinese created this in a lab, and it just escaped the lab.
No, it did not, because I'm certified in chemical and biological warfare. I have 6 degrees. I look at genetic sequence. I believe in facts, science, and medicine. I'm not in the feel-good thing. True, do we do gain of function on different diseases? Absolutely. But you have to realize the virus is doing its own gain of function by doing mutations to cell to survive, natural theories of selection. So when we actually look at the genetic pattern of the actual Wuhan and alpha strain, it has not been manipulated. We can look at your genetic sequence and tell if we manipulated a gene, amino acid, point mutation, etc. So the reality is that is debunked.
Okay, so what we have been saying on here with, again, experts, is that the more people who are unvaxxed, the more people who refuse to take precautions, that virus is like, who can I jump into next? And you said the virus is altering, is changing. So explain that, what that means.
Well, the reality is this, Martin, is that the virus, when it feels pressure, and I've talked about this on the Larry Bennett Show, Little Rock, et cetera, is that if a virus or a microorganism feels a pressure, it's going to change. It's the natural theories of selection. So, for example, you create a vaccine for this virus, and you never create a vaccine in the middle of a pandemic because you're going to create super mutations. That means that your vaccine has to be 100% effective. What does that mean? I'm talking about vaccine effectiveness. If 1% of a virus population lives, it's going to change automatically. And that 1% is going to be billions within a couple of hours. And so that is the reality, is that the virus will change. It will mutate. When we look at the Omicron mutation, we have 50 plus mutation in an HIV positive patient that had ineffective antiretroviral medication. We have a new mutation from another patient out of France, 75-year-old white male, chronic lymphocytic leukemia, same thing, chemotherapy, immunosuppressed. The virus is in the body for a long time. The virus sees it, is treated with monoclonal antibodies, is treated with a vaccine, the virus is going to change. And so the vaccines are creating these new mutations. So you can imagine somebody vaccinated with a mutation, somebody unvaccinated, and the virus mixed together. You get Omicron plus beta, or you get a combo infection. These ineffective treatments is driving this RNA mutation to a whole different level. And so do not be surprised in 1 month we have a virus that has 75 mutations in it.
Okay, so basic question. Should people be vaccinated?
The question I would tell everybody, you have to make that decision yourself. If I look at the medicine and
Okay,
science,
hold up. Before you go there, are you vaccinated?
no, I am not.
And why is that?
Because in my opinion, the vaccine has no vaccine effectiveness. That's the reality.
So even though you have Moderna, Pfizer, who say 91, 85, 81, even though you hear from NIH, CDC, you say?
That is a complete lie. Let me make sure everybody understands this. There's two words that people need to understand in the vaccine world, especially in virology. We have vaccine efficacy and vaccine effectiveness. Vaccine efficacy, Pfizer is going to get a 95% vaccine efficacy all day long. But when you put it in the field, the real world, that number jumps down to about 45% vaccine effectiveness. Johnson & Johnson's down to 13%, Moderna's down to 54%. Ineffective. Then when you play it against these new mutations, the Omicron is probably zero. And this is reality because you cannot have a vaccine that has multiple capabilities. You have to have a vaccine for the alpha strain, beta strain, gamma strain, delta, Omicron, IHU, and they're not going to do that. So when we put it in the real world, when you test everybody, the big mamas, the diabetics, the kids with autism, the women in their first trimester, that number is not going to exist. And that is what's driving this mutation, global endemic infection that's going to be with us for the next 50 years plus.
So with that in mind, but of course there are other doctors, other infectious disease experts who say we should get vaccinated. Now, if that's the case, then how are you protecting yourself? What are you saying to others how they should protect themselves from COVID?
Well, let's start before I answer that question. If you believe in a vaccine, and I'm on the Black AIDS Institute, and we have a thing called CD4 marker for HIV patients. That measures somebody's health. I've been telling people from day one, I helped write the vaccine platform for the Vatican. If you're going to do a vaccine, you have to know what your neutralizing antibodies are. What are they? You get injected, you create antibodies. You measure that. You measure that at 0 day, 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, 1 year. And then you know what your level is. So that's the reality. Neutralizing antibodies is your marker for vaccines. That is the way it is. That's how simple it is. And you have to tune that into the equation. The way Dr. Rowland has always said is that you have to have great biosafety security protocols. Folks, I don't care if you're vaccinated, unvaccinated, wear a mask. Folks, make sure you wash your hands with antiseptic hand wash. Make sure you don't wear your shoes in your house. And least of all, when you're out in the public arena, do not touch the kiosk at the bank machine. Do not touch the PM machine at Walmart. They're contaminated with feces. You make sure you protect your hands and sterilize the environment you're in. Create that bubble. Make sure you have an air purification in your home. If you're at a job and the job is forcing you to be at work with 24 people in a room, you better have great air purification because we know that you can be infected within 5 minutes to 5 seconds of being exposed to the virus. So these little nuggets that Big Mama talked about many years ago, what we use in the world of bioinfectious disease control as an infectious disease specialist is the same concept that people have to use every day. Social distancing, making sure when you go in the public bathroom, be careful, especially at O'Hare Airport, where there's no toilet lids and you flush the toilet and there's feces everywhere with viruses. People don't think about that. Even going to the grocery store, and you watch people go to a grocery store, they pick their nose, they spit, they cough, they scratch, they squeeze the avocados, and they're infected. And you bring that home and your family touches that. So these biosafety security protocols are true, tried, and blue. And at the end of the day, Roland, the reality is natural immunity is always going to win. We know for a fact you get infected, you're going to have neutralizing antibodies for 6 months. If you go down the vaccine road, you will be getting booster shots 4 or 5 for the next 50 years. And that's going to be a whole different story too.
So again, so walking through that, because again, we've had infectious disease experts like Dr. Tyson Bell on, who says absolutely get vaccinated. Stephen A. Smith just talked about his COVID battle. Doctors told him had he not been vaccinated, he would have died from COVID. But one of the things that he said in talking about that, he said how different people react different ways. He said his sister smokes multiple packs a day. He said she had COVID for 3 or 4 days. She was fine. He had to be hospitalized and almost died. So if we're sitting here, if we're talking about the African Americans to protect themselves, and we're having different infectious disease experts who are black, one is saying get vaccinated, one saying don't get vaccinated. There are people who are saying, well, what in the hell are we supposed to do? Who the hell are we supposed to believe?
Well, in reality, Roland, you have to really understand virology. You have to have really been in that world, in that space.
Right.
Like
I mean, we've had other virologists on who said, get vaccinated.
Well, let me explain the terms. We have a word called trophism in virology. Trophism means the ability of an organism to cause an infection, i.e. you get the flu, guess what happens? It affects your lungs. Well, this virus is completely different. This virus has what we have multitrophism, which means it can affect every cell in your body from your eyes, nose, lungs, hearts, etc. So you can have all types of different reaction. Yeah, there's going to be people that are going to have different reaction because they might have a different viral load. Maybe they got more viruses in their nose. Maybe they breathe more in their lungs, etc. But the reality is that if you look at the vaccines down this line, what is your neutralizing antibodies? Simple question. That's your test. In CD4 is very important in HIV patients. Your neutralizing antibodies is very important.
So what test? PCR test, home kits?
No, we're talking about neutralizing antibodies.
Got it.
Which is not, yes, I inject you, your body produces IgG, neutralizing antibodies that are supposed to eradicate the infection. What is that number? This is when I told people 2 years ago, before the vaccine was even, you will be getting booster shots the rest of your life. And we're going to be getting alpha, beta, Megatron, Deltron, Planet of the Apes. They're going to keep going down because there is no long-term immunity to any coronavirus. I teach this stuff. I'm a professor of virology. On my exams, there's no long-term immunity to coronavirus, period. What book are they reading? They're damn sure not reading Dr. Rowland's clinical virology or clinical immunology, and they're damn sure not taking my master's course in virology. So I don't know where they're coming up with this information, but it's not correct, not based on any medical books I got 6 degrees.
So the question is, in terms of moving forward, because see, what we get from our audience is folks want to know what to do. And so when you have competing experts saying one thing or another, what in the heck are y'all talking about when y'all in the room? Because the public damn sure don't know.
Well, I can tell you right now, they're not on the stage I'm on, but I can tell you right the ones that you've talked to, the people that are supposed to be, I guess they got an F because almost 1 million Americans have died and the infection rate's still out of control. So that tells you their record. That's the grade you really want to.
So you talked about social distancing, washing your hands. Okay, so conferences, football games, basketball games. You're not social distancing. You're literally sitting right next to somebody. So do those no longer exist? Do we not have those events? You also talked about going out, don't touch kiosks, things along those lines. Okay, do we put on gloves? Some say, no, gloves are ineffective. So, all right, so if I'm at the kiosk, what am I pressing? Do I put on some sanitizer, press, and then put it on afterwards, or do I put on some gloves? I mean, because the point I'm making is, folks want to know, they want to know down to granular, what are the practical things one has to do? Saying don't touch something is one thing, okay, but what do they do?
Well, that is why you follow Dr. Rowland to get the biosafety and how to navigate into the new world. You have to understand, Rowland, this disease, this virus is out of control. We have to get kids back in school. That is one of my main missions, getting schools open, getting people back.
Okay, hold on. I want you to hold that point because my panel's going to ask some questions. I want you to answer that, but I'm going back to answer my question. That is, if I'm going to the bank If I'm going to the grocery store, do I have gloves? Do I don't have gloves? Do I put on hand sanitizer and pick up something, then put it back on? What do I do?
What you do is you get your hydrosol viral spray and you spray that area before you're going to touch it, and absolutely protect your hands, protect your fingers and stuff. Even touching the gas pump handle, anything that you have to do in this physical world that we are in now,
Protected
you have
with
to
what?
navigate.
You wear gloves? Do you wear latex gloves? What do you?
You can work. What you can use hydrosol spray, antiviral spray. You can use hand sanitizer. You can wear disposable gloves. Anything that protects your hands from being in the contact for a transmission of that disease, you have to do that.
So what I'm saying is, if I'm going to pump gas, do I put on some hand sanitizer, pump my gas, and then when I'm done, put some back on? Am I good?
Hell, I would put that and also grab a paper towel for extra protection.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay. Now, again, events, conferences, football games, basketball games, concerts. I can't social distance. They're literally sitting right there. I don't know who they are. And they're sitting in front of me and behind me.
It's impossible to social distance on an airplane. But this is the new world that you have to navigate.
Right. So what I'm asking, what do we do?
You're going to have to get an upgrade mask, or you're going to have to do some serious, situational changes, because these events are super spreaders.
Okay, so hold up. The upgrade mask. So is it the N95 mask?
All right. There are better masks. You can get an antiviral mask.
Okay, antiviral mask. But what about the N95 mask? CDC is now recommending that as opposed to cloth mask.
Sufficient. It's sufficient. Any type of barrier is sufficient.
Okay. Am I also wearing, if I don't wear glasses, am I wearing goggles? Am I covering my eyes? Some doctors also say, look, you need to cover your eyes to protect you from COVID.
In this environment, because the density of viruses is so concentrated, you go to Walmart, you better wear some glasses. You better wear some glasses on an airplane, because you can't contract the virus to your eyes.
Am I covering up my ears? Because I've heard that too. Do you cover your ears up?
No, I don't cover my ears up. Eyes is one thing. Mouth and nose is the
So you're suggesting, look, when you so again, I'm going back. If it's a concert, anything along those lines, and I'm around a bunch of people, I should have my eyes covered. I should have my mouth covered.
Absolutely. Let me finish my thought.
Now, go ahead.
I mean,
no. I want, because people, again, are in the chat and they're speaking to that. I want to make sure we got that answered. Now, go ahead.
Okay. Well, when you start talking about super spreader events, the ideal super spreader event is the cruise ships. We all know what's happening with the cruise ships. Everybody's negative before they get on the boat. Everybody's vaccinated. And, man, you got outbreaks out of the world. These are super spreader events, even in a controlled Petri dish environment like that. So if you imagine being on a cruise ship, imagine being at a football game, imagine being in a concert, absolutely, you have a very high probability of getting infected. If you're going to navigate into that world, you have to have the best technology. It might be a respiratory mask. It might be having hand gloves. It might be, having your own air purification unit around your neck to create a bubble for you to breathe. All of these things are in play, Roland. There's no one answer to the solution. It is a holistic approach. And this is a new world that everybody, Big Mama is going to be navigating in for the next 50 years.
So you don't believe that we are going to so-called have a post-COVID world?
No, not in my lifetime. That's not going to happen. Or yours.
Questions for my panel. I'll start with you, Mustafa.
Well, Dr. Martin, thank you for being on the show today. I'm curious, how do we get the science to the place that we need? Because the science is supposed to be playing a role with policy, at least underneath of this administration. And if we can't get the science right, then I'm not sure how we get the policy right.
Well, I'm sorry, brother. The reality is they lost the science. It became a political issue. I'm trying to be, the straight shooter, always have been. I believe in science and medicine, and that's why people can't shoot me down, because it's based off the books. The reality is that the science got played. The reality is that people really didn't understand RNA viruses, especially coronavirus. People don't realize that when it comes to RNA viruses, they're very difficult to treat. Ebola, dengue, I can go down the line, and what happens is that when you put a political element into a science realm, you get a bad outcome. And this is where we're at today. You can't have you can't have people in the government tell you that they didn't see mutations coming 2 years ago. I mean, that's basic science with RNA virus. So it shows you there's a significant disconnect, and people are not really living the real world. But folks are living it now because the Omicron has changed everything. Ball game over with, done.
Teresa.
Yes, thank you so much for coming on and giving that different perspective. So I'm curious because, I live in Philadelphia. It's the city, largest metropolitan city, but largest in poverty rate. So what do we tell poor people who don't have access to some of, the sanitations, the masking, the gear that is necessary if they choose not to get the vaccine? Wouldn't the easiest way to protecting and moving forward is to get the vaccine?
No, not the vaccine. The reality is that when I was put on the COVID Healthcare Task Force for the Black Congressional Caucus, and also working with the Urban League, Scott Hamlin out of Arkansas, we understand the significance of poor people really not having access to internet, the best technology. They can't afford the mask. And this is a significant problem that we have to be able to provide to these folks the same amount of effort that we provide for everybody else. And you have to understand the impacts of diseases. It's not just about the physical impact, it's the emotional impact. We've lost a whole generation of children to school. We're going to lose more generations of kids to school because of the Omicron situation. So we have to get back in the community, roll them sleeves up, get, like we say in the military, boots on the ground. We have to start all over and educate people about the reality of this virus, what our capabilities are, what the treatment is, and people are going to have to really put money into this effort, not because it's a moment. I mean, we've always had healthcare disparities. The reality is that now we really know we really have healthcare disparities, and we have to put the money where our mouths is because this disease, this virus is out of control. It's going to stay out of control, and we're going to have significant problems, especially in urban areas where kids are not going to school, kids are not getting their lunch, violence, et cetera. So we have to change. We have to get back to the humanity, as like they always say, we're supposed to be all this together, but we know that's a bunch of crap. We're going to have to do it ourselves.
DeMario.
Hey, Doc, a couple of questions. One, where do you teach?
I teach in the Heinrich Patik Institute in Germany. I'm the director of clinical and tropical medicine in Peru for the last 25 years. I train all over the world. I train students in the jungles of tropical diseases, everything that deals with diseases. I'm in the jungles, real jungles.
Yeah, and I heard you say Arkansas. That's pretty close to me in Oklahoma. Are you from Arkansas? Are you working? You was working with the Urban League in Arkansas. How did that connection happen?
Well, I'm my people from Hazen, Arkansas, and I'm very fortunate to be able to hook up with Scott Hamilton in the Urban League because they wanted me to help them out because of the COVID situation among minorities and rural communities and urban leagues in Arkansas. That's my connection. So me and the Urban League of Arkansas hooked up about almost a year ago, and I've been doing lectures, town halls, giving people food, educating the poor people in the rural areas, giving out free masks for poor folks to help them fight the COVID situation. So that's my connection to Little Rock, Arkansas.
Okay, cool. One last question, Roland. So, Doc, you said how we treat this. Now, where we are now, you said it's an elf, and I think the proof is in the pudding. Things are out of control. If you were Dr. Fauci's position or had control over the policy for COVID, what specifically would you do to get it under control?
Well, the first thing he should have did, if you're in this business to save people's
Well, I'm saying, what would you do? What would you do right now?
I'm about to tell you that. My reality, what I would have done was get on a national platform worldwide.
Not what you would have done, like what would you do like now from today moving forward?
Right. I would set the clock back. I would tell everybody, sit down. We got a national press conference. We're going to talk about the virus. How are we going to get through this? Where do we find the virus at? We find it in feces. What do we need to do? How do we treat it? What happens if you get a head cold? Tell me about all the different things. I would tell you about how to create that bubble for yourself and how we navigate. I would tell you what does testing really tell us? How accurate is testing? I would tell you about the virus. I would tell you about solutions from air purification units to the best antiseptic hand wash. I would tell you how to navigate in this new world. I would teach you how to keep your business open in real time because we have to have the economy going. This is what I would do.
But I hear you saying, Doc, I hear you saying you would tell me, but I'm asking you to tell me, like, how would I keep my business open? How would you keep me safe? I want you to give me a specific, not me, but the audience. I think people, you come on, you have a very, compelling personality. You have a lot of confidence. I think people want to hear from you specifically. What would you do differently from this day moving forward? Because as you stated, kids out of school, my nephews and nieces are out of school. People want to figure out how to move forward. People are afraid to go back to work. I think Roland is giving you an extended period of time to, give your perspective. So what I'm asking specifically, what would you do today to stop this out of control virus?
For example, your people's school. You call me up. I would come there and we would evaluate the situation. I would look at your weak points. I would create that biosafety security protocols at your individual institution, i.e. is its foot mats. What do you have in your doors? What's your air purification unit? Are you spraying your school buses? What are you using to control your bathroom? Because the infectious disease rate is high in the bathroom. How are kids going to be able to eat with their masks? I would come there and my team, we would self-assess, and then we would implement the best biosafety security protocol based off of what we call situation awareness. Maybe you guys are doing it 50%. Maybe you might not be doing it at all, but we would implement that to make it happen. With that, we will also add the famous thing that a lot of people forget is that we would test. We would test the individual institution to find out if the virus is in the building. I've tested schools in the United States, and we found the virus on vacuum handles, cleaners. The janitor was spreading the virus in the school. So this is the type of high-tech biosafety security protocols that Tapeta, my company, and myself will provide to save people's lives and be able to navigate into this new world.
All right. So those are the Mustafa, you had an additional question.
Dr. Martin, I was just, at the beginning of the pandemic, everyone talked about
Dr. Rowling.
Dr. Rowland, I'm sorry. Yeah. Everyone at the beginning talked about the 1918 flu, the H1N1 influenza, and we know that it went through a number of sets of mutations and is even still around today, but of course it's not as impactful as it once was. Do you see COVID-19 following a similar track, or do you think that it's completely different? I mean, I understand sort of the overall structure of it, but for the audience, what should they expect?
Well, the reality is that the coronavirus pandemic, this is not the first time this has occurred. This occurred 20,000 years ago. The 1918 pandemic is a baby to the coronavirus. You have to understand that the 1918 pandemic didn't go on for 2 years. It started in 1912 in China and went until 2022. It changed the world, but it was really only one serotype. The problem with the coronavirus is that we have so many different mutations, alpha, beta, gamma, delta, mu1, Omicron, IHU, and more that are coming, and this is driving the different narrative. So it's going to be very hard unless we come up with a awesome vaccine that can cover every different mutation that's going to eradicate that. And we all have to be in this together. You can't have half the people wearing masks not wearing masks. This is our reality. But the reality at the end of the day, I'm sorry, I deal with death on a daily basis. I've seen stuff that will blow your mind away. I deal with reality. And folks, this is your new reality. And you're going to have to live in this new world, navigate in this new world. This is the COVID time of your life.
Doc, multiple folks are asking in our various chat rooms, they want to know, where were you educated and what is your experience?
My experience, my BS was Weber State, microbiology and chemistry, minor in military science, master's degree in cellular molecular genetics, University of Nevada, Reno Medical School, MD, University of Health Science.
You said University of Nevada, Reno?
Reno, yeah. Okay. University of Health Science, Antigua, San Francisco Medical School, residency training in Honolulu, Hawaii, 6 degrees.
Okay, no, I'm like I said, look, here's the deal. Look, we got a totally interactive show, and so when we have folks who have questions, we go ahead and ask the question because they want answers.
You can always go to my website, has all my CV credentials on there and stuff like that. Military trained, military officer, airborne, all that stuff.
Okay. All right, Doc. We certainly appreciate you coming on. Like I said, we've had numerous. We probably now have done more than 150 plus COVID segments. We've had HBCU professors. We've had virologists. We've had infectious disease experts, ER physicians, numerous people who've been on, and so offering their perspective. And so we're glad that you're here to offer yours. I've even actually had a couple of people, a couple of doctors have already said that they want to come on to refute some of what you had to say. So again, we'll let the experts do what they do.
Well, that's fine. I just want to thank you for giving me the opportunity. I've been following you for about 1.5 years on this space too, and I look forward to doing a part 2 and let's make it happen and go out and save lives. That's what it's all about.
I appreciate it. Thank you so very much. See, it's very interesting when we have these conversations. I love some of these folks who are like, oh my goodness, why have the conversation? Because again, that's why we talk to the folks who actually have the training and the experience. Now, if you disagree with that, you disagree with it. Like I said, I've had some doctors who reached out who said, absolutely, I disagree with him. He's wrong. Absolutely get vaccinated. And so again, we're going to have that conversation. But I'm telling y'all, what we're not going to do, we're not going to have people who don't have any expertise in any area, have no training whatsoever, having these conversations, because we need to hear from folks who do have that training. So you've got epidemiologists, you've got infectious disease experts, you've got virologists, you've got all of that. That's why we have the conversations. I told you, if we're talking about the issue of the law, we're going to have legal experts. I'm not going to have somebody who ain't a